4-3 Jays. 2-2's the count. Up high. And he swung on it. He swung on that high ball. They win the game. The World Series is back in our sights again, Aaron. We beat the World Series champions. It only took 3 tries. Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank. He's Aaron William Freeland.
I think it's time to plan that parade there, Frank.
Well, our intention wasn't to talk Blue Jays, but Hoffman strikes out the last batter. He threw a real high pitch, the second last pitch, and then threw another high one, but more inside, if you will, still high, and he swung on it. And the Jays end up winning 4-3. The 7-game losing streak, Aaron, is officially over. All right, we'll get to the Jays in a second. Let's go with the Leafs, the blue Maple Leaf, and talk about the Maple Leafs. And Peter DeBoer was never on their horizon.
No, with all the coaching changes going on, and with Patrick Roy getting fired, and with John Tortorella getting brought in to replace Bruce Cassidy. Apparently, the Leafs never actually considered Pete DeBoer. They were actually looking for a young and up-and-coming coach. It was a bit of a surprise on Sunday when the New York Islanders fired Patrick Roy and hired Peter DeBoer. There was a certain amount of speculation that he might have been headed to the Leafs. However, I think that the Leafs are planning, I think, on going with somebody more untested or slightly more untested. So this puts them in an interesting situation for sure. Knowing that they had the opportunity to sign him but didn't.
Have they not done this enough? Why can't they hire people with experience? They don't have to be worn out, but at least somebody who understands how to win. What's Cooper doing?
Well, I mean, they did hire a guy with experience who managed to alienate one of their better players by asking him to put together a burn list of, veterans on the team who we didn't think were playing well. Then we brought in another guy who at times appeared as a raging alcoholic who couldn't get anything done and was riding the success of him winning a cup in 2006. Then we brought in this guy who won a Stanley Cup in 2019 with a team that wasn't last. And for some reason, they've gone absolutely nowhere. So they brought in guys with experience. They might as well try to bring in young guys now, because that's, I think, about this is the part of the whole we've tried nothing and it ain't worked sort of thing that we're getting to with this team, and it's.
Well, they tried this. They tried this with Sheldon Keefe, and it didn't work. But really, the bottom line here is the Maple Leafs have to have the kind of team that can win. I'll save my. The Leafs hired a firm to help them figure out who should be leading this organization. Tell us about it, Aaron.
So they actually managed to engage. A company that other NHL teams have used before, and that's Neil Glassberg's firm, the Coaches Agency, to search for what MLS CEO and President Keith Pelley hopes is a data-centric head of hockey ops. It's the firm's 6th search for an NHL club, but the first time for the Maple Leafs. Now they're used to hiring managers, not to rely on friendly referrals or booster contacts as a primary source for candidates. Their approach is focused on conducting universal searches to establish a vast candidate pool, is what the Coaches Agency says. They say that we'll use our extensive contacts with thought leaders across the country to focus on the right person for the right job. I think it's important that they do something exploratory like this before going ahead and just hiring somebody because they need a warm body in an office. It's a good sign to know that they've taken the first step in that search. Sonny Meta is definitely one of the front runners for this sort of thing, because he helped guide the Florida Panthers to a couple straight Stanley Cups. So it's important that we get this all sorted and get this figured out.
We've got here There's an
I
opinion.
would definitely look as a general manager as well. I mean, she certainly knows hockey. She's been with the organization for 6 or 7 years now. She's got an extensive background in that sort of thing. But again, as the assistant to the general manager and head of player development, it's a bit more of a leap. You have to wonder if she has the established contacts necessary with other NHL teams in order to deals and trades, which is a large part of what most general managers these days seem to do. But I'm certainly anxious to see what comes out of this.
I have already spoken about having her be the general manager. I think we need somebody with balls. And she doesn't have a pair, but she probably would act like she probably act like she has them better than the guys that we've had, is what I'm getting at. And it's something that the Leaf organization has lacked. They've lacked the leadership that fights for the team. We saw it here. We saw it here with the Austin Matthews injury, where management did nothing, and we wonder why the players said or did nothing. And it's no surprise, because the theme of this Toronto Maple Leaf version, this core four version, is do nothing. We've seen this team in the last 10 years not fight to win. And it starts at the top. So all kidding aside, I apologize if I offended anybody, but the fact is, I think she can at least come from a position where she's seen what's going on, and she could be. I just don't think the Leafs get respect from the league, and now her being female might help. Just because we want her to succeed, and that might be an advantage that they did not have before.
It would certainly bring shock value. I mean, another one of the things that's been brooded about when it comes to a head coach is actually current Abbotsford Canucks head coach Manny Malhotra. Now, he's already left the Canucks organization once to join the Toronto Maple Leafs, as he was an assistant coach with the Leafs before he went to Abbotsford last season. Even if Toronto goes in a different direction, the chances of Manny Malhotra returning to the AHL with the Abbotsford Canucks next season seems to be shrinking as the weeks go by. Certainly, if Toronto hires Mike Gillis as its new GM or president of hockey ops, it'd be even more likely for him to come there, as Gillis has some familiarity with Malhotra because he was the Canucks GM when Malhotra signed in Vancouver. Now, during their 3 seasons together, the Canucks won back-to-back President's Trophies, while Malhotra finished top 5 in Selke Trophy voting during the 2010-2011 season. So, given its history a little further back, but certainly the thinking is that he might be just what the Leafs are looking for. He's only 45, so he certainly qualifies for the young part. And I think his experience with the Abbotsford Canucks this season certainly has been helpful in getting him more experience.
I would like to see. Okay, the question is, would she even want the job? I would. The job I'd give her is to sit at the boardroom table, to sit there and discuss with the men how the Leafs should be treated. That's what I would like to see. That's the thing I'd like to see. It would be interesting anyway. So Matthews and Nylander are linked to Pittsburgh. Do you think there's any reason for that?
Well, Dubas loves his guys. And Austin Matthews and William Nylander were certainly Kyle Dubas's guys. Now, neither Matthews nor Nylander would come cheap. The acquiring team, in this case Pittsburgh, they would need to send a lot back. In this particular case, on paper, it does seem like the Penguins have the assets to offer. Now, it would be interesting to see what actually would come back. I know that Nylander and Matthews have a good relationship, but Nylander and Kyle Dubas also have a really good relationship. And the Penguins, certainly when it comes to prospects and draft picks, have a lot of stuff at their disposal. And now the Penguins would be on the short list for Austin Matthews too, just again because of the relationship between Dubas and Matthews. Matthews still has another 2 years on his contract, so we'd have to waive his no move. Nylander still has 6 on his, so that would be it would be interesting to see what comes back for sure.
It would become a complete overhaul for the Leafs, but It would be an overhaul also of shedding the past and putting it in the past. Because as long as Matthews and Nylander are on the Maple Leafs, they've still got 1 foot in their horrible history of the past 10 years. Let's talk about baseball. We just talked about the Jays winning 4-3, Addison Barger on a 10-day injured list.
Yeah, so he was pulled from a game after complaining about bilateral ankle stuff. But the hope is at this point that it's going to be a minimal stint on the IL for Barger. He had a slow start to the season. Obviously, he went 1 for 19 at plate. He's drawn 3 walks. He's driven in 2 runs and scored 1 run. But the problem that we have here is that this is a problem with his hitch and giddy up. Now, there are a lot of other players that are currently hurt. I know I've got them listed as stories 2 through 5. I'm just going to whip through them really quick. Alejandro Kirk has been ruled out for 4 to 6 weeks after having surgery to undergone surgery, to repair a thumb fracture that occurred in the series with the White Sox. It's coincidentally the same series where Barger was hurt. Cody Potts hurt himself coming off the mound. He went to plant his foot and sprained his ACL. He's had surgery at this point and is now slated for a 6 to 8 month recovery timeline. So there's that going on for him. The good news is Max Scherzer doesn't appear to be nearly as injured as everybody feared. He was pulled in the second inning of the first game of the series against the Los Angeles Dodgers, complaining about forearm tightness. He's got a 3.38 ERA through 2 starts this season, which is decent. But the good news here is it's not going to require surgery. It's something that they feel that they've caught early enough that they'll have an opportunity to rehabilitate it.
And then there's the good news. 100,000 hot dogs sold.
Yeah, so in honor of their 50th season and the fact that the team first started play in 1977, the Blue Jays were selling 77-cent hot dogs for the second game of their series with the Dodgers. That's because it was April 7th, 1977, where the Jays played their first ever game as a franchise. They sold 102,204 dogs at the end of the day. Through the 7th, they had sold just over 100,000. So huge deal for that. I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's one of those records that I don't think you're going to be able to beat anytime soon. Well, at least until the next Tuesday. So we'll have to see what happens there.
Now, some people have trouble with math, and I do. I have to admit that this is the 50th season of the Toronto Blue Jays, not to be confused with the 50th anniversary, because that date that you just mentioned, April 7th, 1977, is next year, 27. But what they're talking about is this is the 50th season of the Toronto Blue Jays, not the anniversary. Yeah. So a lot of people, hang on a second. I thought I had some people ask me about that, and it confuses them. And I said, no, it's a numbers game. It's how many seasons. What season is it? It's the 50th, and then it'll be next year will be the first of it'll be the 51st season beginning. But it would be the anniversary of the first game. So it's confusing, but that's why it's the 50th season and not really an anniversary. But oh well. Let's talk about the Raptors, and the guy that's very important to them had a very good game in Barnes. Barnes was incredible, was fantastic.
Yeah, Scotty had 25 points as well as 8 rebounds and 5 assists. That helped power the Toronto Raptors to a 121-95 win on Tuesday. This is actually a critical win for Toronto when it comes to postseason seeding. Because of that, I believe that they've actually relegated Miami to 10th, holding the 4th seed in the conference's play-in tournament, 3 games back of the Raptors. Emmanuel Quickly, Sandro Mamukelashvili, and Colin Murray Boyles were all made available to play for Toronto less than an hour before opening tip-off. Quickly scored 3 points and added 4 assists and 4 rebounds in 18 minutes of play. Andrew Wiggins of Vaughan, Ontario, led Miami with 24 points. Tyler Herro and Norm Powell each had 14. They had a really poor shooting performance. The Heat did. They finished 33 for 91 on field goal attempts, including 12 for 44 on three-pointers. The Raptors outscored Miami 70 to 34 in the paint and got 23 second chance points to the Heat's 6. RJ Barrett and Murray Boyles, like Barnes, had 8 rebounds apiece. So that's a big win for them. That's goes a good way towards putting them in a good spot for the postseason.
Absolutely. Let's talk about soccer in Canada and our national team. We had 2 players that have come off the injury list, 2 very important players.
Yeah, that's for sure. One of them is Deficit. The other is Profit. Profit's been benched, and Profit's come in and Deficit's been benched. The really good news here is Canada Soccer is projecting a $6.5 million surplus in 2026. They said in a financial update released this morning that the 2025 deficit was 1.44 million, down from 3.99 million in 2024, and nearly $1 million below its budgeted deficit. That's definitely a good thing at this point in time. Who were the players that you said were coming back, Frank?
Jonathan, David, and
right,
and I'm having a brain cramp.
That's all good.
The other Jonathan, I think it's 2 Jonathans, isn't it?
Osorio?
No, not
Osorio and Davis, right?
Okay. Yeah, Davis. Yeah, but anyway, the point is they have some really good scores on the team, but they're sitting on the sidelines, and the redheaded guy, he's supposed to be coming back.
Right.
That's the other. What's his name? Geez, doesn't matter. This is what you get for just watching. I wasn't prepared to make that comment. Okay, flying by the seat of my pants. The Bombers jacked up.
Yeah, they're very excited by the addition of Gerald Broxton. Colaros is most enthused about this thing. He says he's one of the best tackles in our league and still a young player. He hasn't had the amounts of reps as a guy like Stanley Bryant, but apparently he talked to Jarrell after he signed, and you can tell how excited he is to be in Winnipeg. This is something that the Blue Bombers needed to do because they're trying to make sure that they fortify their front end to make sure that they get back to where they want to be.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Alouettes.
They've signed Micah Awe to a 1-year contract for the 2026 season. He's going to give them additional depth on defense as one of their American linebackers. Danny Machosha is really excited about that. He says he knows the league and our organization. He's always prepared properly. His professionalism will help guide our younger players. He led the CFL with 114 defensive tackles in 2025 while adding 3 special teams tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 2 interceptions with the BC Lions.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the Ticats.
So they've signed linebacker Jaden McDonald and receiver Jalen Gill. McDonald had a standout season at UConn in 2024. He appeared in 13 games and registered 125 total tackles. On the other side of the coin, Gill most recently spent time with the Cleveland Browns of the NFL during the 2025 season. He also had stints with the San Antonio Brahmas of the UFL and the Ottawa Red Blacks in 2025 after entering the professional ranks in 2024 with the LA Chargers as an undrafted free agent.
Let's talk about the Riders. They got a new long snapper.
Yeah, they've signed Canadian national long snapper Aaron Crawford. He's played in the CFL for 13 years. He's bringing that to the Rough Riders special teams unit after having spent 5 seasons with the Stamps from 21 to 25. He's played 68 games for the Stamps. He's earned 16 special teams tackles and 1 defensive tackle, and he was voted the CFLPA's All-Star Long Snapper in 2022.
Absolutely. Let's go to our third period where we talk about other Canadian teams. One in particular, the Habs. They beat the Panthers in a shootout.
Yeah, so Carter Verhaeghe opened the scoring. Demidov evened it up less than a minute into the second period. Reinhardt unfortunately managed to score to give Florida the 2-1 lead again before Montreal got 2 goals in the third from Phil Deneau and Nick Suzuki. Luosterainen scored for Florida as well in the middle, and then Caulfield got the capper in the shootout. Very glad to see that for him. Power plays. The Habs went 1 for 4. At the end of the day, I think it's special teams is partially what helped. The fact that the Habs were better able to keep themselves out of the box is a good thing. Didn't see any real shenanigans involving one of the Kachucks. So we'll call it a win in that regard when I don't have to read too much about at least one of them.
Talk to me about the Sens.
This is where I have to talk about the other Kachuk, which I'm not really all that happy about. Brady had 4 assists in this game. He assisted on Ottawa's first, second, third, and 5th goals. This was, it was looking like a pretty decent game until the wheels fell off in the 3rd period. Ottawa got 5 goals to Tampa Bay's 1. The lone light for them was Corey Perry scoring to make it 3-2 before they took the doors off, with Stutzla, Sanderson, and Pinto getting the next 3 goals all within 5 minutes of each other to squash any attempt at a comeback. Linus Ullmark gets the win. Jonas Johansson ends up taking the loss on this one. 5 goals on 31 shots for him. 2 goals on 30 shots for Linus Ullmark. So better performance in that regard.
Jets playoff hopes are on life support. Tell us about them.
Well, they managed to score 1 goal in the first, 2 goals in the second, and 3 goals in the third as they put down the Seattle Kraken 6-2. Taves, Velarde, Connor with 2, and Lambert all had goals. Nemestikov capped it off with an empty netter with just under 2 minutes remaining. Good performance by Winnipeg. They had been up and down lately, but they did manage to get a consistent performance out of Connor Hellebuck this time around. So glad to see that for them. As it currently stands, things are still a little bit dicey for them, but they're currently sitting, if memory serves, they're currently sitting just outside of a there they are, just outside of a wild card spot, 4 points back of the Nashville Predators, with 5 games to play to Nashville's 4.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Oilers.
So the Oilers surrendered to a 2-goal lead to the Mammoth and ended up losing in overtime. They were at one point, they were up 3-1 at the end of the first period, but a couple goals by Schmaltz and Logan Cooley helped sort of tie things up, and then they went back and forth the rest of the way until Clayton Keller put it away at 33-second mark with a power play in overtime. That penalty went to Matt Savoy, 2 minutes for tripping, 25 seconds in. That's never any sort of a penalty that you want to take, especially when it's 3-on-3. It's a little too close and a little too dicey to be doing that sort of thing. Now, the Oilers are still in good stead. They are currently first in their division with 88 points, but they're tied with the Utah Mammoth, who also have 88 points in the first wild card spot. Not quite sure how this is all working out the way it is, but I expect to see some team in the wild card spot that's actually going to have more points than the Edmonton Oilers in the standings very shortly. It's a confusing system.
It happens from time to time. It doesn't necessarily work out that the top 16 get into the playoffs. There are times when it doesn't work. Let's talk about the Flames, and they had a 2-goal lead.
Yeah, they ended up losing by 1. Now this was at American Airlines Center. You had the Calgary Flames up 3-1 at the start of the third period. Zane Parekh scored 26 seconds in, but then goals by Johnston and Robertson and Johnston again in overtime led to the end of that. And it was, again, a power play goal off a high-sticking double minor to Ryan Strome, 48 seconds in overtime, that finally put Calgary out of their misery. It's an interesting thing to see special teams, especially in overtime, playing such a big role here. But it's I don't know, man. You kind of expect more.
And sometimes you'll get more. But not this time. Let's talk about the Canucks.
So, yeah, the Canucks gave up a third period tie-breaking goal, 12 minutes and 13 seconds into the third. Connor Smith, the Vegas Golden Knights. Unfortunately, they were unable to claw their way back into it, and that's how they ended up finishing, losing 2-1 at Rogers Arena. They now have a firm lock on last place and have the highest lottery odds to draw first. Carter Hart gets himself the win. Nikita Tolopilo, who allowed 2 goals on 29 shots, gets himself the loss. But, Carter Hart allowed 1 goal on 11, which is certainly not covering himself in glory.
No, but you know what they say, goaltender can do enough to win. That's what really matters. Let's talk about some royalty, the Kings.
So they're barely limping their way into the playoffs. Here's the thing. The Kings only have 19 regulation wins. The rest of their points have come through winning in overtime. It's not necessarily sustainable, but they've gone to overtime far too many times. I think they've actually gone to overtime now 31 times, which seems like a lot, or maybe I'm overcounting. In any event, they've gone to overtime more than any other team in the league so far this season. And I don't know if that's sustainable, but I do hope they do manage to cash Nashville, who are only a point ahead of them, for the final playoff spot, so that the Leafs can get a higher draft pick out of the Scott Laughton trade.
There you go. Devils part ways with GM president Tom Fitzgerald.
So ex-Maple Leafs legend Tom Fitzgerald has finally been released by the New Jersey Devil. Here's some of the interesting news. The person rumored to be replacing him in New Jersey is none other than Toronto's Brendan Shanahan. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But he was one of the names that was floated as a possible replacement.
He, as president, probably not. Maybe GM president. He did want to be the GM in Toronto, it seems. Then you have Fitzgerald going a former Leaf. Then there was Kevin Adams that left the Buffalo Sabres, and then they went Sky. And there's talk that they're talking about getting him for the Leafs. Look at what he did the last time he worked. Do not hire him. Don't really. There's talk that we talked about Pittsburgh being a candidate for Matthews and Nylander. I truly believe, Aaron, that I really don't think that this team can advance with both Nylander and Matthews. How do you feel about throwing your lot against for those guys again after having basically built teams around them before and it hasn't been successful? Is it just, do you think it's possible they could put different guys around them and the team could win?
It's possible that they can surround them. I'm thinking honestly, legitimately at this point, they're probably better off to just cut losses and start fresh. But again, the 2 and 6 years left, respectively, for Matthews and for Nylander does put a crimp on things, because you do need to find A, a buyer, and B, to convince the players that they want to move. And I think that's going to be the hardest part.
I really don't disagree with you. And the reason I don't disagree with you is I don't think it's a question. I don't think it's a guarantee, a lock that they don't want to move. And I don't think there's a lock on being able to move them. So it's an iffy situation at every level, right? So I guess there would have to be somebody who really believed in those guys, one or both, right? That would really want them. I said last week, and I'll repeat it again this week, and I'll repeat it again next week. Don't give away any draft picks or salary, right? Any salary cap. Don't retain any salary. I would take very little for both of them, just so that I could have that cap space. I know cap space is not very important, but I still think that there's players out there that they can get and start fresh, where it's a different coach, different GM, different everybody, and get a fresh start going. And the most important thing that I can say is have an ownership that doesn't get involved on who they should or should not have. an ownership group that doesn't say, well, if we make a trade this year, we might be able to get a couple of playoff games. Let's do that. Trust your management team to go for the goal. The ultimate goal isn't a playoff game, isn't a series. It's a championship. Now, all they have to do is plot what Montreal has done in the past couple of years, and you'll get an indication of how it actually works. They don't have any $13 million players on their team, but that's a much better team than Toronto. And I think, Aaron, that's a much better team than any Toronto team that has been around in the last 8-10 years. Why do I say that? Balance. You could yank a couple of guys off that team. It's got a nice deep roster, and more importantly, they've actually got stud defensemen, not one, but at least two stud defensemen. And that's something the Leafs never had. And if you want to win in the playoffs, the power play's got to work. And Aaron, you and I both know that without a stud defenseman in the playoffs,
you're not going anywhere.
You're not going to have much of a shot. So that's my opinion. Anyway, I said I'd save it. I saved it. There it is. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frankston Ishii. Thank you for watching Leaf Talk. And of course, we'll see you again. Friday, you got tickets to something, don't you?
No. I'm available. I just need to make sure I'm out of here at about 10 to 7 because I'm playing a hockey game.
Okay. So we're gonna do the 10 to
50-minute
10 to 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.
Not a problem, Frank. Thank you.
He's a go-tour, let me tell you. Oh yes. Thanks for joining us.